Thanks, Scott, and glad to see everybody here. Glad to be back. So our topic today, we are going to talk about um, what it means to actually use our last resort options in a relationships. So I'm going to start with a story from my yard. It's that time of year I've been spending a lot of time in the yard, and we inherited a flower bed in our front yard that has a plant in it called bishop's weed. And if any of you are familiar with bishop's weed, it's a green leafy ground cover plant, and it's worse than grass when it gets into a place that you don't want it. So it spreads by rhizomes. The root system is what spreads it. There's no seeds, and it's like impossible to get out of the soil. So we have this flower bed that has a bunch of bishop's weed in it, and it started creeping out of the flower bed onto the grass. We generally didn't like the look of it, so for 3 or 4 years we tried weed whacking it every week to keep the leaves from growing and hopefully to kill the root system. That didn't work. I've tried digging it out by hand, like with a shovel, and getting it out that way. That didn't work. I decided a couple years ago my option of last resort would be to buy some Roundup and to spray it. I don't like using Roundup. I think it's a terrible product. It's dangerous. It does kill plants. It kills everything else too. So I thought, I'm really going to bring the big guns, and I don't want to do this, but this is the only way. So I sprayed all the bishop's weed with Roundup, and it died for a little while. It stayed away for about half a season, and then it started coming back again. And I also, the bottom of the bushes that are in that flower bed also died because there was enough Roundup mist in the air that covered those leaves, and it killed those too. So as I've done further research, the only reliable way to get something like that out is to remove the first couple inches of soil where the rhizomes live. So instead of pulling it out in clumps like I had done before, I'm actually going to have to get like a tractor, a Mini X, and I'm going to have to like scrape the first couple inches of soil off if I want that gone, which is going to be a lot more effort, a lot more time, a lot more expense. But that's how to actually get the job done. So I was thinking about that this morning as I pulled out and looked at that flower bed that's full of bishop's weed. And I was thinking about this pattern that I've noticed with couples when I catch them, or when they come to session and they're really nasty with each other, like when there's yelling, when there's threats, when there's insults. When I decide to intervene, I'll usually say something like, all right, now how effective was that? What's happening with your partner? And I'll usually get an answer back, something like, well, how else am I going to get them to listen to me? I've been trying it every other way. Nothing else works. So I've got to do it this way. And I'll ask them, okay, so well, did it work? And they'll say, no, it didn't. And I'll say, and how many times has it worked in the past? Well, never. And so there's this really interesting thing we do where I think we bring out some of our most terrible people skills. And we tell ourselves, well, this is the option of last resort. I don't want to use these big guns, but I've really got to get the job done. So I've got to do it this way. And the distortion there is that it doesn't really get the job done. You might get what you want temporarily. The bishop's weed might go away for half a summer. But if you're really not doing the job right, which in any kind of relationship where you are staying together, doing the job right is having an arrangement that works well for both of you. It's looking out for each other's safety and security at all times. It's protecting each other even from the worst parts of us. Anything that goes against that is against that. You can't have two negatives make a positive here. This is not math. This is people. So when it comes to relationships, part of what you have to do with your partners, you have to know how to get them to do what you want them to do. Bottom line. And I'm not talking about all the time. I'm not talking about being manipulative. I'm not talking about being coercive. I'm talking about when two individuals come together and decide to build a life together, they do not understand each other. And oftentimes do not reach a level of understanding with each other where they always get it right with each other, where they always intuit what the right thing to do for the relationship is. We often have to work through it. So what I mean by you have to get your partner to do things that you want them to do is you have to get your partner to see a different perspective. Oftentimes your perspective. Oftentimes a perspective that's separate from both of you, like when couples come into recovery and they've tried for months and months after D-Day to figure this out and they're not making any headway. And they go to a therapist or they go to some drop-in groups like Seeking Integrity offers, and they get a third perspective. Why don't you two try it this way? It's a really important relationship skill to be able to lobby for what you want and to do so in a way that encourages and even entices your partner to go along with what you're proposing. Now, we'll dive in just a minute on how to do that actually well, because when people do that in a crappy way, it's manipulative, it's coercive, it's slimy. So let's talk about that side first. And again, I go back to this mental trick we all have going on, that we think we can get in a mode of thinking where the slimy stuff, the manipulative stuff, is the only way to get the job done. In order to be really good at this, getting your partner to do the things that you want them to do skill, you have to be able to do it without any kind of pressure, manipulation, coercion, or threat. And when I say pressure, I mean negative pressure. There's not a natural consequence, but I'm adding a consequence because I want you to do what I want you to do. Saying to your partner, you need to get sober, or I can't think about staying in this relationship, that's a positive pressure because there's a natural consequence there. Saying to your partner, I need you to get sober or I'm taking away your car, when they're not an alcoholic and they're not a danger to people behind the wheel, or you'll never see your kids again when you're not a threat to the children. That is negative pressure because that's not a natural consequence. Consequence of you and I can't be together if you don't create a relationship, or not interested in a relationship that works well for me too. That is a natural pressure. That is a natural consequence. So these are all options of last resort that are actually not really good options, because you may get compliance in the moment. When you tell your partner, I want this or I'm leaving, and you're not serious about leaving, you actually don't have a plan to do it, it's just a threat. You may get your partner to play nice for a few days, but they'll actually come back with a vengeance. They'll be full of resentment. And especially if you're not serious about following through, they'll lose their respect for you over time. So these aren't good options, because in the end, neither of you get something that's good for you. Neither of you get anything that looks like what you want. You perpetuate the stalemate. So the backing principles, I guess, behind helping your partner to do what you want them to do are things like attraction, enticement, negotiation. I'll even put in there seduction. That can be both sexual and non-sexual seduction. Invitation. These are harder skills to master, and they usually take a longer time than going out and spraying the emotional Roundup. But they are more effective. So just a word on manipulation here, because this, and I think for a lot of traumatized partners, this can feel like what we're talking about is manipulating in a nice way. I will say the non-emotionally charged definition of manipulation is intentionally doing something to get a result that you want. So in that sense, good recovery is manipulation. I'm working the steps because I want healing. We're going to marriage therapy. We're intentionally doing this because we want our relationship to be prepared. So there's a couple differences between manipulation, the way that we think about it, and positively putting your hand on the scale so that you have a better outcome. In selfish, or I would say one person system manipulation, the kind that none of us like, the good terms that we're setting, they end after we get what we want. So we see it as a tit for tat kind of a thing. So I will play nice with you, but as soon as I get what I want from you, I'm going back to doing whatever I want. That's manipulative. Recognizing that when I greet you with good cheer at all times makes you more cooperative, makes you more likely to listen to what I have to say, to hear me out, to go with me, to be flexible with me. I'm going to greet you with good cheer at all times, no matter what's going on, because that's clearly a good thing for you and a good thing for me too. I get a partner who likes to play ball with me, not just someone who feels like they have to, or is so desperate for, you know, my good nature and my attention that they feel like they have to go along even when their insides are saying he's just going to drop you again. Another part of relationship positive, putting your hand on the scales, is you really know your partner and you know what they like, you know what's good for them. And you are able to offer that frequently, sometimes as a negotiation, but a lot of the times just because you can. You know, that old trope, partner A brings home flowers for partner B, and partner B says, "These are beautiful, what do you want?" If that is how gift giving, and if that's how getting the things I want from my partner feels to you, you have a history problem. Meaning you've used that too much. You've used that to only get what you want and not to support. If there's a culture of, I get you what you like because I know you like it and I want to see you like it, and I want you to feel good and I want you to feel thought about. If you have a culture of that on occasion, saying, you know, I took care of dinner tonight because I was hoping I could get some time for myself later on. Is that okay with you? That's not going to tip this. That's not going to push the feeling of the relationship in the direction of you only give to us when you want to get for yourself. That's on occasion, yeah. You're going to check out for a while. So you did some extra work ahead of time to make sure there was as little disruption as possible. Great. That's thinking about both of us. All these things, attraction, enticement, negotiation, seduction, invitation, they're harder to do in the short term, because our human nature is when I want something, especially when it's something that we feel is linked to our survival or our well-being, when we want it now. And that's a big liability to slip into one person system thinking. I'll think only about me, not about us. All of these, attraction, enticement, negotiation, seduction, invitation, they require that we think simultaneously about us and our partner. We're looking to broker a win-win at all times. We wouldn't put an option on the table that didn't have a win-win. So I won't ask for something that I know is a detriment to you unless my very next breath, or maybe even I lead with, here's what I want to do for you, because I also want to do this other thing that I know is going to take from you. We're always looking to make sure that there's give and take. It will allow us, although these are harder short term, we can actually get what we want and allow us to keep it. When I finally do get around to redoing my front yard, I'm going to be renting a mini X, and I'm going to take out that couple inches of soil where the bishop's weed is, because I don't want it there anymore. I'm going to invest in the work so that I get the result I want, and I'm not constantly fighting this battle. Let me see if there's anything else I had in my notes. Working out of attraction. I'm going to entice you and attract you to see things my way, to follow me on this, to dream with me. That does require a plan. Threat requires no plan. Threats are easy to come by. Think about the last time somebody cut you off, the last time one of your kids did something stupid, the last time your spouse let you down. You probably muttered a handful of threats under your breath, or maybe even at the top of your lungs, without even thinking about it. Threat is easy. Attraction takes time because you also, you have to know the ins and outs of your partner. A good negotiator is someone who comes into negotiation knowing what the other party wants to get out of it, and looking at providing as much of that as possible, at the same time getting what they want as well. So you have to do your homework to do this kind of attraction thing. Going to your partner and offering what you think they would like because you like it is not good practice. Every now and then you might get lucky. But this is why it's important to find out, your partner's favorites, special things for your partner, what's most meaningful for them. Again, not so that you can dangle it. That's manipulation, that's coercion. But so that you can offer it in good intent, with good faith. I want to give you this because I know it's good for you. And when you have what's good for you, then I can have what's good for me. And that's how our relationship works. Let me see if I have anything else. In threat or in attraction, when we're putting this, is you have to know what makes your partner tick. In threat, we're really good at knowing what ticks our partner off. Think about some of the ugliest fights you've had in your relationships, and you say the things that you just know are going to get to them. The reason why you say it in the heat of the moment is because you don't care how they're going to feel. You're focused on how you feel. I want the win, not I want the relationship. So some ideas to work with, like I said, and like we've talked all along, these skills can be used in any relationship, not just an intimate partner one. And I think particularly for couples early in recovery, this is a really important concept. First of all, for you partners who have been betrayed, you don't have to beg your partner to be a part of a relationship with a fake smile on your face. Setting terms clearly, this is what I can do and this is what I can't do. This is what I will do and this is what I won't do. That's actually on the positive side of this. That's good negotiation. I'm coming already to the table and I'll tell you my bottom lines. You don't have to guess. Quit acting out. Be honest with me. Be kind to me. Get yourself well. Those are not negative. Those are not sticks we bring to the table. Those are carrots, saying I can consider a good relationship with you if these following conditions are met. There's a part of me that would probably be all in for that. So go there. Let's see what happens. For those of you who are on the betraying and the addicted side, this is one of the ways you can get better at your relationship, is to make yourself accountable for the ways that you use the options of last resort that actually aren't real options. It's a form of denial. You can also become accountable to your recovery groups and your partner. How am I doing? Am I making good offers to you? Am I thinking about you? A lot of couples that I work with early in recovery, when I ask them questions like, what does your partner like to eat? Where do they like to go? What relaxes them? What makes them laugh? They don't have good answers. That's pretty low-hanging fruit you can find out. And you can get good practice providing that, and being able to affect your partner's mood and outlook for the positive. Not just have them hyper vigilant looking for all the ways that you're about to mess up, but you can also start to put some deposits in the bank account. I'm not just about being neutral to you. I want to be your biggest fan and your biggest support. So that is attraction versus coercion.
Thank you, Jon. That is so much more than attraction versus coercion. I mean, it is attraction, but you hit so many buttons for me in that. It was crazy. As far as, the slimy side of going about this, I wanted to ask, manipulation, negative pressure, coercion, threat. What about lies? Just out and out lies.
Oh yeah, that's deception. You can add that to the list.
Okay.
That's the old. So in our first house, we bought a house in the inner city of the city that we lived in. It was kind of a bit of a rehab neighborhood, and our neighbors, they moved in a couple years before we did, and they showed us pictures of this home that they moved into, and it looked beautiful. The home that they then inhabited, there were large swaths of plaster like falling off the wall. They were redoing a bathroom and they found that a giant mirror was just glued to the wall. It wasn't, put up properly. Deception is it's a way to get what you want. It's a way to sell, but knowing that you're not selling what you say you're selling. You have no intention of following through. It's a gimmick. It's cheap. And it will always lead to hurt feelings, is putting it lightly. It will lead to somebody seeing you as a sleazeball instead of a viable partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Because I was like, you're missing one. You're missing. This is like having grown up with the slimy side. I wanted you. I think you explained this very well. Natural pressure versus negative pressure, but I think it's super important to really clarify that for everyone. Can you go over that again?
Yeah. For you partners out there, when I work with partners and I say, when we come up with a list of boundaries, I say, okay, we need to identify the consequences if these boundaries are violated. I'll often see this like look of panic, or even some anger. Well, I don't want to be the police here. And I'll back up and I'll say, okay, well, let's start with what are the natural consequences if your partner breaks these boundaries? Well, I'm not going to want to talk to you. Perfect. I'm not going to be sharing with you if you're breaking my boundary. I may not want to sleep in the same room because I don't feel safe. Awesome. We're not going to sleep in the same room because I don't feel safe when you do these things. Honestly, if I saw this one again, I'd probably consider divorce. Perfect. Natural consequence. So the natural consequences, part of the problem I'll see in relationships is we try to forestall the implication or the initiation of natural consequences because consequences suck. They're painful for everybody, but that's also kind of the point. If there is not a outcome connected to our behavior, we can't learn. So when it comes to positive pressure, saying to your partner, if the lies continue, I may not want to be with you anymore. There's no creativity there, and there doesn't have to be. It's when I think we try to get creative with our punishments and we go for the like, oh, well, if a little bit of pain is good, then a lot of pain is better in learning. Pain that makes sense is great in learning. I put my hand on the hot stove, my hand hurts. Oh, great. I've learned not to do that. It's when the consequence and the pain is unrelated to the initial thing that it actually gets confusing.
Yeah, and this is, we talk about this in boundaries too, when we're talking about just setting healthy boundaries. It's like, look, yeah, there has to be some consequences, but they need to follow from the broken boundary. When you do this, it makes me feel this, and I will probably respond this way. Not, when you forget to take the trash out, I get pissed off and I'm going to call your mother and tell her how horrible you are. That's not really a good consequence for that one.
Right. And here's the whole thing about this. The coercion side of things, I think, is just as much work for the person who's doing it as the person who is receiving it. I mean, just if you don't take out the trash, I'm calling your mother. Oh my gosh. Like,
really?
Versus me saying, hey, don't get into bed yet. You've got to take out the trash you agreed to.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then the healthy version, this is more a comment, but when you said attraction, enticement, seduction, and I was like, it was like my, because of course I grew up with a narcissistic, manipulative, enmeshed mother. And then you immediately said, we're not talking about the bad side of manipulation. We're talking about more selfless as opposed to selfish. And, so this is actually my question. Example, my mother, every time I come visit, makes 3 or 4 pies. I don't like pie. She likes pie. I made pie for you. I don't like pie. I am 56 years old. I have never liked pie. I'm not like changing the game on her. It's about her. She's narcissistic. I like pie. He must like pie too. I'm going to make pie. I want pie. I think it's really easy sometimes for one or the other half of a couple, and just transfer my mother and I to like a romantic relationship. No, don't please. But for one of them to think, oh, I'm being really selfish. My partner really likes this, when the partner doesn't. and it's not for the mutual benefit. And you mentioned mutuality and selflessness and knowing your partner. What happens when we run into a lack of mutuality and a lack of selflessness and a lack of knowledge about the partner? But the other person is saying, no, they love pie, you know?
Yeah. So it was my son's 6th grade graduation this morning. And so I went into work a little late, and I got to see his graduation ceremony. So by the time I get home, we'll have been apart for about 6 hours. He may have a new best friend in that time. He may have a new favorite food. I cannot take it for granted that the person who 6 hours ago, or I would say even an hour ago, and anytime you spend any time apart from somebody, things can change. So to go back to that, well, you used to love this, that's rubbish. That doesn't count anymore. Because if you're going to have a real, like, secure, functioning mutual relationship, you'll believe your partner when they say, I actually don't like pie anymore, or I've never liked pie, or that's not true. You don't insist on your own perception. That's not the name of the game. The name of the game to make your partner feel safe and secure is that they know there's plenty of room for them as a person, their perceptions, their likes, their dislikes, to take up residency in you. So you have a couple options. You can keep doubling down and saying, well, no, you like this, what's wrong with you? Or you can take it as a learning opportunity. Oh, my bad. When did that change? You remember we went to that pie festival together and I got food poisoning and I can't look at a pie again. Oh, you're right. I am so sorry. Or I had no idea. Thank you for updating me. When you get information wrong with your partner, it does not have to be a big deal if you're willing to correct it fast. Let me update my file on you. I'm clearly out of date. My bad. Because it is. It's your job to have the owner's manual on your partner. Not their job to necessarily give it to you ready-made, but your job to keep it up to date and to know how this person functions and runs.
Yeah. So, okay, let's have questions because I could go all day on this one. My sex addict husband says he can't feel his addiction while I'm not trusting and being nice to him about being sober, even though he is not in recovery and keeps having relapses, and he does not follow my boundaries, but he wants me to be happy and supporting of his sobriety. I don't feel I could do that if he is not in recovery. Am I wrong? He just had another relapse this week.
Okay.
That's a great question.
It's an awesome question. And if your partner's here, make sure they're listening. If not, bring them in right now when you rewatch this video. I'm going to say something that is absolutely essential for a relationship surviving after betrayal. There is not moral equivalency here. Sure, it's a foul to not be happy around your partner, generally speaking. It is not the same kind of foul or the same magnitude of foul of lying to somebody, deceiving somebody, and breaking your commitments for fidelity. There is a moral hierarchy. And until that is addressed and until that is fixed, you do not have parity in this relationship. Whenever the attitude of the betrayer is, well, I don't know if I want to be with you unless you change this, this, and this, that is a dangerous place for the relationship to be. Again, because there is not a moral equivalency, it's a moral hierarchy. Because you committed the greater sin, you have to be the penitent one. I get it. I would really love it if you were happy and supportive of my recovery. I get it that you're not. I put you through the ringer. And it's not up to me to make the call of when you should be done with that or when you should be able to be happy again. So while I want you to return to happiness and support of me, I will understand that that is at least going to take some time. And so I'm going to buckle down and do everything possible to right this wrong that I've committed, this grievous sin. I would even call it treason against a relationship. I've committed treason against a relationship, and I must do everything in my power to show that I am loyal to this relationship. Then and only then can I expect that my partner will consider letting me back in.
Yeah, I get this from the guys in my sex addiction, porn addiction work groups all the time. my wife just yelled at me. I'm like, well, of course she did. She's mad at you. But I didn't act out today. I'm like, did you act out yesterday? No, but you acted out 3 weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't. I'm like, no, stop it. And
If you're,
when the guys are doing well, I tell them, if you're looking for a pat on the back and an attaboy and a great job, come to me or
yes,
come to your fellows in
I
recovery,
was just,
because
I was
you are
going to say
not
that.
getting it from your wife.
I was just going to say that you have to release her. If you ever had a claim on that, you have to release her from that duty for the time being until she says, or he says, or whoever says, I'm ready to pick that back up again. And now I want to be your support. But first you have to provide due diligence and show that you are willing to do what it takes to actually be invested in this relationship. It's not, oh man, you caught me. All right, yep, I'm in trouble. Now let's get back to that even playing field. No, the playing field is not even until you make sure that it's even.
Yeah, until you earn it.
Yes.
To say that you can't heal from your addiction while she doesn't trust you and while she's not being nice to you, BS, number one. And
Earn
you've
it.
got it backwards.
The phrase that I've heard is earn it to own it.
Yeah.
So if you're not a trustworthy person, you can't demand that people trust you.
Yes.
Yeah. If it's not easy to relax around you because your partner doesn't know when the other shoe is going to drop, you can't say, why don't you relax around me? You have to earn it to own it.
Absolutely. Okay. Sorry about the coughing. I'm 5 months sober, working the steps. My wife and I both need physical touch and enjoy cuddling, but we're not ready for sex yet. I'm glad you realize that. It arouses me, and I'm struggling with being sexually obsessed about her. How do we continue to be intimate without feeding my sexual obsession? What another great question.
Yeah. So again, an experience I had this morning, I got out in the yard early and started working the yard, and I worked right up until my son's graduation ceremony. I got ready, I didn't eat breakfast. And on my way into work, I stopped at one of my favorite drive-thrus and got my favorite burrito. And I ate it on the way into work. And until I was about halfway through the burrito and I started feeling full, I was thinking, ooh, maybe I should stop there and get, I'll get a Jamba Juice. And then maybe I want to stop there and I'll pick up some snacks for later. I had this impulse because I had an unmet need. Now, when it comes to sexual obsession, the need you have is not necessarily more sex. Sometimes it can be, but most of the time it's not. So the best thing to do, I'm actually glad to hear that y'all are practicing this. I'm trying to get the physical touch needs met and separate this out. When the craving hits, and this is what I told myself while I was driving, well, I'm not going to make any determinations about any more food I buy until I get to work, and I'll see how I feel. Well, it just so happens I, ate most of the burrito by the time I got here, and I was very satisfied. I wasn't thinking about it anymore. So the best thing to do is when those feelings come up, stop what you're doing in a kind way. Don't freak out and go away, but just get centered again. Be mindful. What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? The initial sensations and impulse thoughts, they'll only last from 2 seconds to 2 minutes. And then they'll give way. They'll give way to something else. So you might need to take advantage of those moments where you have the sexual obsession come up intensely. Take advantage of those moments and let yourself feel it for a bit, not trying to stoke it, not trying to make it go away, and see what comes next. You may discover that you're feeling anxious because for a lot of the sex addicts I work with, intimacy makes them anxious. You may be upset about something earlier in the day, and your body and brain are in this mode of like, all right, we get sex now, all of our problems are going to be solved, and you have all of these emotions kind of rushing the door, so to speak. So pause and get mindful until the feeling passes. In my experience, you won't have to do a ton actively to make the feeling pass if you'll be mindful around it, and you'll learn a ton about what's making your addiction tick, which is great to know. But the key to that is, especially if you're with your partner and that comes up, y'all will need to arrange ahead of time how we gracefully and safely shift gears. Because if you just drop your partner, if you just leave, you're going to leave them with a lot of shame and a lot of frustration. If it's again, honesty. I'm laying all my cards on the table so we have a negotiation. There are times when you and I are trying to be close where I'll feel this like intense sexual desire come up. And I know that's not what you want. And it's not what I want to be doing to you. So in those moments, I'd like to excuse myself. I'd like to take a time out. I'd like to break our embrace so that I can get centered and I can be safe for you again. Would that work for you? That's negotiation. I know what you're looking for. You want to be safe. And I know what I'm looking for. Can we both get what we want here?
Yeah, I love that answer. And I love that this question came from the addict. Because, as addicts, we have an intimacy disorder. We are scared to death of true intimacy, basically. I mean, that's a huge generalization, but when somebody feels too close to me, I either turn it into something else, sex, or I run away from it. Those are my natural states of being. And this comes from not getting my needs met early in life, getting them ignored early in life often. So I have a need to be seen and heard and understood and known and validated and loved exactly as I am. But I am afraid every time I start to get that need met, that whoever it is going to leave or turn the tables on me or whatever. This is just permanently ingrained in my brain, no matter how much I know it's not true now in my life. So, as an addict in early recovery, 5 months sober, if I was cuddling with my wife and I'm starting to feel that need get met, all of a sudden I'm going to get scared. When Jon said lots of addicts get anxious when this happens, this is why. It scares us. And so we either run away or we sexualize it, which means we take the intimacy out of it. Great sex is when we're feeling that connected, and then we have sexual intimacy as well as the emotional intimacy. That's the best sex that any couple can have, is when we're feeling super connected and we're also both in the mood and we're looking each other in the eye and talking. And, if I turn you into an object, forget about it. The intimacy's gone. So I love that you recognize that you're hitting a point where you start to objectify her. And you don't want to do that. So kudos to you on that. And I don't know if Jon has further thoughts about that.
No, it's a journey, and I think it's less helpful to think about extinguishing this thing that comes up that we don't like, because it started happening for a reason. It serves a purpose, and as soon as you can find out what the purpose is by staying with those feelings and observing them instead of acting out in order to escape them. When was it? A couple months ago, I realized that the term acting out didn't just mean, breaking sobriety, but it was also I'm acting my way out of these feelings I don't like. So instead of acting out, observe it as if you were, studying some bird as a bird watcher. Learn its habits, learn how it comes up. You'll learn a ton about yourself. And you'll learn about a need that you can now work on meeting in a legitimate way that you may not have known you had before, because your addict is just good at throwing sex at the need. But there's more to it there. So I think sounds like you're in a strong position to start some healing there, which is encouraging.
Next one here. I came across some significant info from my husband's childhood that he intentionally did not disclose in his therapeutic disclosure, which supposedly included his entire sexual history. It seems this incident he hid from me may play a significant role in his addiction. Advice on how to handle this. Is this a serious breach? Did he have the right to withhold this from me?
Yeah, so I'll talk about disclosure specifically, and it sounds like you answered my first question, which is, did you ask for the entire history? Because the way the disclosure works, it's not the addict saying, I get to vomit everything on you. It's the partner actually saying, here's what information would be helpful for me. And you work with your therapist on determining what that information is and why you want it and what it's going to do for you. Not because you should be kept from everything, but because once you hear something, it can't go out of your head. So you want to make very, very sure that the information you're getting is going to help you construct a story that helps you make the decision that you need to make, or to construct a complete narrative that helps you make the decisions that you need to make. So advice on how to handle this. First of all, are you in marital therapy? If so, or whoever you did the disclosure with, bring this up. It's not uncommon that there is additional information that comes out after disclosure, unfortunately. It's not the way that I like to operate. I don't like to count on it, but a lot of times it does happen. So bring it into that space. And it's fair to ask the question, why did you leave this out? I asked for it. What happened there? And I think you're going to have to follow your gut on that. Was this an intentional deceit? Was this dissociation? There can be a lot of things, and I'm not here to make excuses for that. The bottom line is you asked for information that was not included, that was there, and you two have to get to the bottom of why. Yeah. As far as do you have the right to withhold this from me, I go back to that moral equivalency thing. If you have been lying and deceiving, and your partner says, I want full truth, you don't have the right to withhold anything, because you have to make penance. So if your partner says, I want complete transparency and complete honesty, of course you could not give it, but you have to recognize you are taking the relationship's life in your hands when you do that. That is, again, I'll use the term, it's a strong evocative term, but that's an act of treason. When you say, I get to determine what you need to know, because that's the original offense. I kept you out of information that you should have known, and had you known, you could have made a more informed choice.
Yeah, I think you nailed it though. Why was it left out? Were you afraid I was going to use that as an excuse? I was molested and I'm going to use that as an excuse, so I left it out. I mean, which is wonky thinking and not a good reason to leave it out, but I could see how someone would think, whatever. Yeah, I don't want to make excuses, but why? Yeah. Next one here. Hey guys, as the betraying partner, I'm having a hard time finding a sponsor who will hang in there and work the steps with me. Am I being ambivalent for trying to work this problem out for the most part on my own? I am a mother enmeshed man, and does that affect my ability to recover and heal? Before I turn that over to Jon, please go to Jon's website or Ken Adams' website. And they both together offer mother enmeshment workshops that are incredible. So, okay, all you, Jon.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, working with a sponsor can have a million different glitches. And I would say that the principle here is not necessarily, so sponsorship isn't necessarily about getting you from the beginning of your journey to the end of your journey. It's nice when that happens. But the root of sponsorship is someone who can teach you how to work the steps. That's the first job of a sponsor in my book. So if you're striking out, if for whatever reason someone can't see you through on that, get another one. If you have burned through every available sponsor in your area, you might want to ask, why am I so rough on sponsors? What's going on here? I know from my own recovery journey, it took me a long time to get an effective sponsor because I was being picky. And I had a million justifications why, but at the end of the day, what it was is really working on this and really diving in scared me. So in the beginning, I think it's helpful to look at it that, again, your job as a sponsor and my job as the sponsee is we're learning how to work steps and we're doing that effectively. So keep first things first. You may not like your sponsor's voice, but do they know the steps and can they teach you? Yes, stick with it. You may think, I would never be friends with this guy. Well, that's fine. You're not supposed to be friends. He's your sponsor. Your sponsor and sponsee, you're working the steps to recover. And yes, enmeshment issues do come in and they do affect things in relationships. I would say that's not an excuse. That's a clarifying statement of where my starting point is. I'm going to struggle with this. I'm going to have to work extra hard at this. But there's not a separate set of steps for any nuance you may have, or a separate path to recovery. The general good ideas are generally good for just about everybody. So I would look at those two. And again, I know I don't want to blame the person who's having a problem here. There are times where finding a good, solid sponsor is hard. So there's phone meetings too. I got my best sponsor on a phone meeting. And I simply asked at the end of the meeting, I need someone to sponsor me. Is anybody willing to do that temporarily? And it was one of the best experiences I've had with a sponsor. So if sponsorship in your area is not strong, you have access to a phone network and you can find a ton of good options. So stay with it, keep at it, don't get discouraged. And then again, always consider the common denominator in all of your relationships, which is you. What might I be bringing to the table that makes this hard?
Yeah. And different sponsors behave differently. Some sponsors are basically, I call them Nazis. You will call me at 7:03 a.m. and we will talk until 7:07. And you will do this today. They micromanage your life. And look, not for me, thank you. But some people like that. Sometimes the sponsor will call the sponsee. One of the rules I've had with everyone I've ever sponsored is, I'm here for you, but you're the one who needs to take the initiative. It's your recovery. So if you want to work step one, you call me and say, let's work step one. And I'll give them assignments when I meet with them, read this and start working on step one. But you have to call me with questions and, to sit down and share with me, and then we'll move to step two. But it's your responsibility to call me. That's just my rule. So yeah. You got to find the right. So yeah. Okay. Next question here. I am now being love bombed. I told him it was overwhelming going from one extreme to the other.
Love bombing is not as great as it sounds, by the way.
No, it is not. He still wants sex, even though he says he wants to make love. He says seek help. He says he will seek help when he can afford it. I shared a group that was free after he sent me a question about foreplay that I answered about supporting him in recovery. He then used the overwhelmed word when I brought up the free group. Do I back off and no longer ask where he is in his recovery, or should I ask again?
Here's my question to you. What are the stakes if you back off? Are you willing to keep riding a roller coaster and have your life go at his recovery pace? Or do you need him to catch up to where he needs to be as your partner? So there is overwhelm in the beginning of recovery. There's no doubt about that. Again, just like any other issue, it's not an excuse. It's a starting point. There are so many free resources for recovery. There's 12 steps. There's seeking integrity. There's peer support. There's smart recovery. Like there are so many good options for not doing this all by yourself. So what I would say is, how much do you have at stake here? Are you needing your partner to get a move on, or are you willing to put up with more of this? If you need your partner to get a move on, don't back off. Say, I know this is really hard for you. I know this is really overwhelming for you. I actually couldn't imagine. I've never been in your shoes before. However, in order for me to consider a good relationship with you after the way that you betrayed me, I can't move forward if you are unsupported in your recovery. And by the way, the sex and the love stuff, something feels off. It's overwhelming for me right now. I need you to back off. Again, it's part of that. Anything that happens in a relationship has to be good for both partners. He may be loving this. He may feel like the most competent partner of all time. That's great. But it's clearly not working for you, and you can bring that up. It's not working for me. I need you to back it off. Here's what I do like. Here's what does work for me. Here's what I can do right now. All of this stuff right now, it almost to me it almost feels like this litmus test for, is he going to think about me, or is he going to keep thinking about him? And you need to know that.
Yeah, I read that question and I hear my mother in the background with the pie going, no, you like pie. Eat some damn pie, No, I want to eat pie.
I was going to ask Scott if the pie's good, but you probably don't eat it because you don't like it.
Yeah, no, I don't like pie.
I'm a big pie fan. If she needs to make pie for somebody, I might.
Yeah, I'll mail you some the next time I'm home. The next one here, this is kind of a follow-up question to one of the earlier ones. How do you and the addict know if the addict is objectifying you, or the intimacy you're feeling includes healthy sexual attraction? That is an excellent, God, we're having good questions today.
That's a really, really good question. I would say anything that's in the healthy sexuality realm is actually the confluence of a lot of different factors. So healthy sexuality rarely comes just from, being in the moment and being passionate. So I would say the easiest way to get at this is whatever moment you're in, stop and ask, what are you thinking about right now? Some couples may feel like that's a mood killer, to talk and to get into thoughts. I would say the mood that's killing is dissociation. We're not fully here. So get fully here. What are you thinking about right now? What's going through your head? And get in the habit. I think it's awesome when couples are in the habit of asking that question and giving immediate responses, no filtering. That's one of the best ways to check. And then, of course, always come back to how it feels to be you. You know the difference between being leered at. Everybody just picture that for a minute. Someone leering at you versus someone really admiring you. World of difference. So it's the same thing for you. Slow down in that moment and ask, what am I thinking right now? What's going on for me?
Yeah, I love that. If you ask a question about where you are and get the question back and that kills the mood, you probably shouldn't be having sex right now. I mean, It's just end of story. Great, let it kill the mood.
That was probably about something that then was less than full connection, which is not. I don't want to demonize that as an arrangement for sex. I mean, it has its place, but in early recovery, we're trying to get all cylinders firing. So you really don't want to pass up opportunities where you could have all cylinders firing. You don't want to skate through that just doing what you've always done.
Yeah. The follow-up question is just in general, couples will often ask, how will we know when we're ready to become sexual again?
Yeah, man.
Just in a general way.
Yeah. Can I say there's not a right answer? I mean, there's principles there. I think safety and respect are really good ideas to have there. And, I think both safety and respect are in question right after relapse, or right after discovery. So you might want to make sure that you've addressed that. You're going to want to pay attention to how your body feels. I don't think sex is a good proposition for anyone who's like, I don't know, viewing it like running a marathon. I just have to keep going even though I'm throwing up. Like not a good arrangement for sex. So you really have to look at is the desire there? You can have desire with barriers that can make it hard. That's not a bad setup. But no desire and barriers, there's some individual things to work through there, or some relationship things to work through there.
Yeah, and we got a whole bunch of questions that we're not going to get to today. We're out of time, so I've copied them and we'll open with them next week. So or 2 weeks from now, I promise. I just want a little anecdote about me, because you brought up it's important how you're feeling body-wise. I used to, in my addiction, I would leave work sick. I'd have a doctor's appointment, and I would act out on the way to the doctor. I am not feeling well today. The last thing on earth I want today is sex. But it's how you view sex. Is sex an escape, or is sex a connection?
Yeah.
It used to be, I don't feel well, I think I'll escape that by acting out. So yeah. We have a whole bunch of questions that we'll start with next week. I promise. I have a document that I saved these in, so we will not lose them. How can we be free to say yes if we are not free to say no? Jon, I will echo me. You are always free to say no.
Yes. Yeah. And if that's the feeling in the relationship, I can't say no. Say no and run away.
Yeah. It is not safe.
Yeah.
And you should never have sex if you don't feel safe. So thank you everyone for being here. Jon, great topic, great questions today. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks everybody. Bye.